I don't understand why he's still alive. I froze on the porch. The voice came from inside my daughter's house, sharp, unmistakable, dripping with irritation. Marjorie, my little girl, who once refused to sleep without holding my thumb, now spoke about me like I was a burden left on her doorstep. The screen door breathed out lemon cleaner and roast chicken. I held a bag, a jar of blackberry jam, some bolts for her husband's mower, and a wrinkled photo of her at 6 years old, missing a front tooth but full of joy. That photo suddenly weighed more than the rest of my life combined. I could have turned around, pretended I didn't hear, but pride, that old stubborn soldier, pushed me to knock. The brass knocker struck wood like a judge's gavel. Inside, footsteps hesitated. "Dad's at the door," Marjorie said quietly. Then Thaddeus, my son-in-law, answered with a voice as cold as his handshake. "Just handle it." So I stood there, back straight, palms sweating, and whispered to myself, "All right, Arthur, let's see how alive you really are." I thought I was visiting my daughter. Instead, I was walking into a house that had already buried me. Marjorie opened the door halfway, just enough to let her face out, but not her warmth. "Dad," she said flatly, as if she were greeting a tax collector. "Well," I said, forcing a smile, "either you've redecorated or I'm at the wrong house." "Is this still 145 Maple Drive, or did you upgrade to no parents allowed?" Her lips twitched, not into a smile, more like into a polite accident. "Come in," she sighed. The living room looked like a hotel lobby, spotless, silent, and absolutely allergic to comfort. My slippers from last Christmas were gone. The chair where I used to read was replaced by something that looked like it cost a mortgage payment and felt like it was judging me for breathing. Thaddeus sat at the table with a laptop, typing like the world depended on his spreadsheet. He didn't look up. "Arthur," he said, still staring at the screen. "Ah, so I'm still Arthur, not Dad," I said. Good to know the promotion didn't stick. Marjorie's eyes darted toward him. "He's working, Dad." "I can see that," I replied. "Must be hard work." Ignoring people. There was silence, that kind of silence where you can hear the fridge thinking. Then I noticed something new on the wall, a framed photo. Family picture. Marjorie, Thaddeus, their kids. But where I used to stand in those photos, there was a fern. "I see you replaced me," I said, nodding at the plant. "At least it's greener." Even Marjorie almost smiled. Almost. I placed the jar of jam on the table. "Blackberry, your favorite." Unless Thaddeus banned fruit now, too. Thaddeus finally looked up, sighed, and closed his laptop. "Arthur," he began, "we were actually discussing arrangements." I frowned. "Arrangements? For what, Thanksgiving or my funeral?" Neither of them laughed. The air got heavy. The fern suddenly looked uncomfortable, too. Something was coming, and I had no idea yet just how deep this conversation was about to cut. "Arrangements," I repeated, lowering myself into the chair that used to creak when I read bedtime stories. Now it sighed differently, like even the furniture wanted me gone. Thaddeus folded his hands. "You've been living alone for how long now?" "Long enough to know when someone's rehearsed this conversation," I said. Marjorie shot him a glance the kind couples share when they're about to present a joint decision. "Here it comes," I thought. "The PowerPoint of parental disposal. We think," she began, "it's time you had more support." "Support?" I chuckled. "I built half this town with these hands. I've supported beams heavier than your entire mortgage, sweetheart." Thaddeus leaned forward, all sympathy and starch. "Arthur, it's about safety. You fell last month. Once. And it was because of that rug you gave me," I said. "Things slipperier than your tax returns." He blinked. Marjorie almost snorted, caught herself, then coughed instead. "I saw the girl she used to be flash for half a second. The one who'd giggle at my bad jokes while pretending not to. Dad," she said gently, "we just want what's best for you." "Oh, that's wonderful," I said, "because what's best for me usually starts with pie and ends with nobody taking my car keys." Thaddeus pressed his lips together. "We've looked at some lovely communities." "Communities," I said. "I already live in one." It's called a neighborhood. And unlike your lovely community, mine doesn't smell like disinfectant and broken spirits. Silence again. Except this time, it wasn't awkward, it was thick, heavy with something they weren't saying. Then I saw it an envelope on the counter, my name written in Marjorie's handwriting. You planning to mail me something? I asked. She froze. We were going to tell you tonight. My hand trembled a little as I reached for it. Whatever was in that envelope, it wasn't jam or love. And yet, some stupid part of me still hoped it was a birthday card. I held the envelope like it was ticking. Marjorie bit her lip. Thaddeus pretended to check his watch, the international gesture for, I'd rather be anywhere else. Well, I said, forcing a smile. Let's see if I'm being promoted to ex-father or just transferred to storage. The joke landed like a pebble in a graveyard. I opened it slowly. Inside was a glossy brochure, blue sky, smiling seniors, matching sweaters, Silver Pines Retirement Community, I read aloud. Oh good, they have shuffleboard. I always dreamed of spending my last years arguing about whose turn it is to die first. Dad, Marjorie said, trying to soften it, it's not like that. Then what's it like? I asked. Do I get weekends off from being old? Thaddeus stood, straightening his imaginary tie. Arthur, it's about comfort. You'll have company, activities, meals prepared. Meals prepared? Son, I fought in a kitchen before you were born. I can fry an egg with my eyes closed and my soul open. Marjorie sighed, rubbing her forehead. You can't even drive at night anymore. That's not age, I said. That's survival. Have you seen how people drive these days? Half of them are texting, the other half are filming it. For a brief moment, she laughed. A real one. Short and startled, like her old self had slipped out before Thaddeus could cage it again. Then, quieter, she said, We just want peace of mind, Dad. I leaned back. Peace of mind. For you or for me? Nobody answered. The fern looked at me again, smug and silent, still standing where I used to. Well, I said, standing up, if I'm moving to Silver Pines, I'll need to know if they allow sarcasm and whiskey. Otherwise, I'll have to decline on medical grounds. Thaddeus finally broke his silence. You're not being asked, Arthur. It's decided. That was the moment something ancient woke up in me, the same thing that used to rise before a storm. I looked him in the eye and said softly, Then you'd better pray I agree with your decision. Because old men don't fight loud anymore. We fight quiet, and the quiet is what gets remembered. I didn't shout. Old men don't need to. We just let silence hang long enough for guilt to start chewing on people's insides. Marjorie shifted in her seat, fingers fidgeting with her wedding ring. Dad, please don't make this harder, she whispered. I chuckled softly. Oh, sweetheart, you think this is hard? Try raising a teenage daughter who once dyed the dog pink because she was experimenting with identity. She covered her mouth, half laughing, half remembering. That was a phase. Yes, I said, and apparently, so am I. Thaddeus stepped closer. Arthur, there's no need to turn this into a scene. I stood up, brushing invisible dust off my coat. Don't worry, son. If I were making a scene, you'd need popcorn. I walked over to the photo wall again. I studied it quietly, all those perfect smiles. The grandkids, my daughter, Thaddeus. All of them frozen in time, looking happy. Except the space where I once stood, now occupied by a potted fern. Tell me, Thaddeus, I said, do you water me twice a week too? Or just when the neighbors visit? His jaw tightened. That's not fair! You're right, I said. Plants at least get sunlight. For a moment, even the fridge stopped humming. Then, as if life had a sense of humor, the timer on the oven beeped 3 polite chirps cutting through the tension. Marjorie jumped. Oh, the roast! I grinned. Ah, good. At least someone's not getting thrown out tonight. She tried to hold back a smile, failed miserably. You haven't changed. Of course not, I said, lowering my voice. I'm too stubborn for updates. But as she walked to the kitchen, I saw her shoulders drop. The guilt had settled like dust you can't sweep away. And Thaddeus, well, He still didn't know that when an old man says nothing, he's already planning everything. Because if they thought I'd go quietly into that retirement paradise, they were about to learn silence doesn't mean surrender. I waited until Marjorie disappeared into the kitchen before I sat back down right in Thaddeus's perfect leather chair, the one that looked like it came with a membership fee. He raised an eyebrow. "That's my seat." I smiled. "Not tonight." I leaned back, made a satisfied noise just to watch him twitch. "Ah, that's good lumbar support. No wonder you're so smug all the time." He crossed his arms. "Arthur, this attitude isn't helping." "Neither is your face, but here we are," I said. He inhaled through his nose, a long one, like he was counting to 10 in corporate. That's when I noticed the papers stacked beside his laptop. I tilted my head. "What's that?" "Just some forms," he muttered. "Forms that need my signature, I bet," I said. "What am I signing for? A room with a view or the deluxe coffin package?" He said nothing. The air tasted of roasted chicken and regret. Then Marjorie called from the kitchen. "Dinner's ready! Dad, will you stay?" "Stay?" I said, standing. "I was just told I'm relocating. Shouldn't I be fasting before deportation?" She rolled her eyes. "It's roast beef, Dad. You never say no to roast beef." "True," I said. "That's how you trapped me into watching your school play in '89. Bribe me with gravy." Even Thaddeus smiled a little at that. For half a second, we looked almost like a family again, 3 people pretending not to be hurt. We sat down. The plates were perfect, the wine fancy. Marjorie tried small talk. "How's your neighbor, Mrs. Tully?" "She's fine," I said, still waiting for her husband to come back from heaven. I told her that's not how heaven works, but she says she's got connections. Marjorie laughed through her nose, covering it quickly like it wasn't allowed. Then Thaddeus cleared his throat. "Arthur, before dessert." I raised my fork. "Careful, son. You ruin dessert, I'll haunt you." But he continued, calm as a lawyer reading a will. "The move is scheduled for Friday." I put the fork down. "Ah, so it's official. I'm dessert. And the funny thing? I smiled because they thought they'd made the last move. But the board was still mine. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of anger. Anger burns fast. What I felt was colder, heavier, like someone had folded me into a box I didn't fit in anymore. The clock ticked in the guest room they'd prepared for me. No photos, no warmth, just beige walls and a mattress that squeaked with every memory. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the years I'd spent fixing this house, the roof, the porch, the plumbing, all with my own hands. And now, the people I built it for were planning to evict the builder, so I made a plan. Quiet men always do. At 3 a.m., I slipped out of bed, crept to the kitchen, and made myself a sandwich roast beef, naturally. Because if I'm going to get kicked out, I'm taking the leftovers with me. The fridge light bathed me in holy glow as I chewed thoughtfully. "Silver Pines, huh?" I muttered. "Sounds like a place you go to wait for the credits to roll." Then I saw Thaddeus's laptop still on the counter. Unlocked. Oh, bless his overconfidence. I clicked. Emails, invoices, property tax papers, and one draft labeled "Power of Attorney Pending." My name was right there, bold as betrayal. So that's what this was about. Not concern control. They didn't want to help me. They wanted to own me. I chuckled softly, shaking my head. "Oh, Thaddeus, you really shouldn't play chess with a man who built the board." I didn't touch anything. Didn't delete, didn't print. I just took a photo, my own little insurance policy, and closed it quietly. Then, before going back to bed, I left a note on the fridge. "If I'm too old to live alone, I'm too old to be fooled. P.S. I ate the last of the roast beef. Consider it rent." The next morning would be interesting, because the only thing more unpredictable than an angry old man is a calm one with a plan. Morning came wrapped in fake cheer. Marjorie made pancakes, the kind she used to beg for when she was 10. The smell hit me before the guilt did. "Good morning, Dad," she said too brightly. "Sleep well?" "Oh, like a baby," I said. "Woke up every 2 hours crying." Thaddeus looked up from his phone, jaw tight. "You left a note." "I did," I said. "A man's got to communicate. You two never answer your phones, so I used your fridge." Marjorie tried to laugh it off, but I could see her eyes scanning me, looking for clues of what I knew. I was just teasing, I said, sipping coffee. But tell me, Thaddeus, what's a power of attorney pending? Sounds fancy. Should I start calling you captain of my wallet? He froze, then recovered fast. That's private, Arthur. Oh, I'm private too, I said. But apparently my future's public property now. He stood, defensive. You were snooping. And you, I said, calmly buttering my pancake, were planning a coup. Guess we're both curious by nature. Marjorie put down her fork. Dad, please. It's just paperwork in case. In case what? I die inconveniently between breakfast and lunch? I leaned back, watching Thaddeus's ears redden like guilty tomatoes. You know, I continued, you two should have done theater. The acting's good. The script needs work, though too predictable. Marjorie's voice cracked. We were scared for you. I smiled gently. No, sweetheart, you were scared of me, because I remind you what loyalty used to look like. She fell silent. Even the clock seemed to stop ticking, afraid to make things worse. Then, after a long pause, I said, Anyway, I've decided to visit Silver Pines, after all. Thaddeus blinked. Really? Sure, I said. A man needs to see his options. Besides, I hear the residents play poker every Thursday. I'd hate to miss the chance to win your next month's mortgage. For the first time, Thaddeus didn't know what to say. And I liked that silence. It sounded like the first small victory, because they thought the story was ending. But I was just flipping to the next chapter. I packed that afternoon. Not much, just the essentials. My shaving kit, an old photo of Marjorie holding her first fish, and a chessboard missing one knight. I figured I didn't need it. I already had enough fools on the board. Marjorie hovered in the doorway as I folded my shirts. Dad, you don't have to do this so suddenly. Oh, I do, I said. I've waited long enough to be put out to pasture. Can't disappoint the schedule. She frowned. You're making it sound like we're sending you away. Sweetheart, I said, zipping the bag, you literally printed directions. Thaddeus appeared behind her, arms crossed, pretending this was all normal. We'll drive you tomorrow morning. The director said she's expecting you. Perfect, I said. I like punctual people. Makes betrayal easier to plan around. He sighed, muttering something about drama. Careful, I said. Old men invented drama. Back in my day, we didn't need Wi-Fi for it. That night, I wrote a short note and tucked it into the photo frame I'd leave behind. It said, You can't manage a man who built you. You can only hope he forgives you before he teaches you a lesson. The next morning, we drove in silence. Marjorie stared out the window. Thaddeus tapped the wheel like he was counting minutes till freedom. Silver Pines looked exactly like its brochure, spotless lawns, happy residents, and the faint aroma of sanitizer and denial. A nurse waved. Someone in a golf cart smiled too wide. Well, I said, it's like Disneyland for people who nap. Marjorie tried to laugh. It's peaceful. Yes, I said. Nothing says peace like a place that charges rent for breathing. We walked in. The receptionist handed me a folder. Welcome, Mr. Reeves. You'll love it here. Oh, I already do, I said. I can feel my personality leaving at the door. Thaddeus whispered something to the woman, sliding papers across the counter. I pretended not to notice, but I caught the words financial authorization. And that was when I knew. They still thought I'd play along. They hadn't realized I was already 5 moves ahead. Because this wasn't my surrender. It was reconnaissance. Silver Pines was too quiet. The kind of quiet that felt rehearsed. Even the birds seemed under contract. A woman in a lavender uniform showed me to my room, suite, they called it, though it was smaller than my garage. She smiled like someone who'd been told to. Mr. Reeves, if you need anything, just press the red button by the bed. Does it bring whiskey? I asked. She blinked. No, sir. It alerts the nurse. Then never mind, I said. If I'm going to call someone at midnight, she'd better bring something stronger than applesauce. She didn't laugh, but her mouth twitched a victory, in my book. The room had everything. A TV bolted to the wall, beige curtains that insulted color itself, and a little card on the nightstand that read live, laugh, love. I scratched out laugh with my pen and wrote survive. Dinner was at 5 sharp. 5! I hadn't eaten that early since Eisenhower. At the cafeteria, rows of retirees sat like polite ghosts. Some stared at the soup, others stared at each other, trying to remember why. I sat down next to a man with eyebrows like storm clouds. He looked up slowly. You knew? Apparently, I said. Got promoted to resident. He nodded. They got bingo tonight. Great, I said. I came all this way to gamble for plastic ducks. He cracked a grin. You'll fit right in. That night, while everyone else shuffled off to bed by 8, I walked to the admin office. Through the window, I could see the director, a neatly pressed man named Mr. Boyd, talking on the phone. And there, on his desk, was a stack of files. The top one said, Reeves, Arthur, payment pending. I leaned closer, reading upside down. It listed my account number, signature required, and power of attorney. Thaddeus Clark. Bingo. Except this game, I was the one shouting it. I walked back to my room, smiling to myself. They think I'm old, I muttered. But I've outlived 3 presidents, 2 recessions, and 1 disco era. Paperwork doesn't scare me. In the morning, I'd make my first move, and this time, they wouldn't even see the board. Morning sunlight poured through the blinds like it had nothing to apologize for. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the folder I'd borrowed from Mr. Boyd's desk last night. A little early morning stroll and an unlocked window had worked wonders. Age may stiffen your knees, but it sharpens your creativity. Inside the folder were all the details I needed. Bank accounts, payment schedules, legal authorizations, every way Thaddeus had planned to turn me from dad into revenue stream. I chuckled softly. Well, son, congratulations. You've just made your old man the most dangerous kind of senior one with free time and Wi-Fi. At breakfast, I made friends with Edna, a retired court clerk who still corrected everyone's grammar. You seem lively, she said, buttering her toast. I'm just auditioning for parole, I replied. You know anyone who still knows a good lawyer? Her eyes lit up. My nephew runs a firm in town. Perfect, I said. Tell him I've got a case hotter than the soup here, and trust me, the soup's at least 70. By noon, I had a plan. Edna's nephew, Daniel, came by after lunch, tall kid, sharp suit, smelled like ambition and coffee. So, Mr. Reeves, he said, flipping open his notepad, you're saying your son-in-law filed for financial guardianship without consent? That's the polite version, I said. The impolite one involves phrases not allowed in church. He laughed. Do you have proof? I slid him the phone photo I'd taken of Thaddeus's laptop and the file from Mr. Boyd's desk. His eyebrows shot up. This is solid. You could have them investigated for fraud. Fraud sounds so cold, I said. Let's call it family enlightenment. As he left, Edna leaned toward me. Arthur, you're dangerous. I grinned. No, Edna. I'm organized. That evening, Mr. Boyd knocked on my door, sweating like someone who just realized their office window wasn't as locked as they thought. Mr. Reeves, he began carefully. We seem to be missing some paperwork. Paperwork? I said, innocent as pudding. Oh dear, you really ought to keep better track of that. People might start thinking you're careless. He smiled thinly. We wouldn't want any misunderstandings. Neither would I said. Especially when lawyers get so easily interested in misunderstandings. He left, and for the first time in weeks, I slept like a man who'd finally found his footing again on solid, beautifully legal ground. But this wasn't over. Tomorrow, I'd make sure Marjorie and Thaddeus finally learned the price of underestimating their old man. 2 days later, I called Marjorie. Her voice trembled through the line. Dad? Are you okay? How's Silver Pines? Oh, it's paradise, I said. They serve mashed potatoes shaped like clouds, and I get to watch other people slowly lose arguments with gravity. She gave a nervous laugh. You sound good. I am, I said. In fact, I'd like to see you both. There's a meeting tomorrow. Bring Thaddeus. Mr. Boyd will be there too. Pause. That kind of silence where you can hear someone blinking on the other end. Meeting? She asked. Yes, I said cheerfully. Think of it as a family reunion with paperwork. When they arrived the next morning, they looked like they were walking into a job interview they hadn't studied for. Marjorie wore guilt disguised as lipstick. Thaddeus looked around the lobby like he was allergic to the elderly. Dad, he said stiffly, you didn't have to call us here. We were going to visit this weekend anyway. Sure you were, I said. You'd have brought balloons and a pen for me to sign my soul over with. We sat in the office. Mr. Boyd was already there, pale, sweating, eyes darting like a squirrel in traffic. Next to him sat Daniel, Edna's lawyer, nephew, calm and smiling like a cat who'd already eaten the canary. I gestured to him. This is Daniel, my representative. He's young, but his suit cost more than my old Buick, so I trust him. Thaddeus blinked. You're what? Representative, Daniel said smoothly. We're here to clarify the legal standing of certain documents. Specifically, one called Power of Attorney Pending. Marjorie's face went white. Dad, we just wanted to help me, I said. Yes, I know. Nothing says help like secretly taking control of a man's life before dessert. Mr. Boyd coughed. Mr. Reeves, I think we can… No, Mr. Boyd, Daniel interrupted. You'll listen, because as of yesterday, Silver Pines has a new agreement. The facility's legal department has confirmed Mr. Reeves' full independence and a counterclaim for unauthorized data handling. Thaddeus swallowed hard. What? In plain English, I said, smiling. You two can't touch a cent of my money. And if you try, the only community I'll be visiting is the one you'll be doing community service for. Edna, who had tagged along pretending to deliver tea, snorted so hard she nearly spilled the tray. Marjorie covered her face. Dad, please, we didn't mean… Of course you didn't, I said softly. Nobody ever means to betray someone who trusted them. It just sort of happens between brunches. I stood up, straightened my jacket, and smiled kindly, the kind of smile that stings more than shouting ever could. You wanted peace of mind. Now you can have it. I'm perfectly safe, perfectly sane, and perfectly done being underestimated. As they left, Thaddeus mumbled, You planned this, didn't you? I winked. No, son. I lived long enough for it to plan itself. I didn't rush home. Old men don't rush. We stroll especially when we know the world is finally walking at our pace. A week later, I packed my bag again. Same contents. The photo of Marjorie and her fish, my chessboard, and a jar of blackberry jam that had survived all this nonsense. Edna hugged me before I left Silver Pines. You sure you don't want to stay, Arthur? You're the most entertainment this place has had since someone hid the pudding spoons. Tempting, I said, but I've still got a house to reclaim and a fern to evict. She laughed. You're trouble. Always have been, I said. That's why I'm still breathing. When I walked through my front door, the air smelled different. Not bad, just apologetic. Marjorie stood in the hallway, eyes red, holding a broom like she'd been waiting for me to swing it at her. Dad, she whispered. Marjorie, I said, hanging my coat. You redecorated again? I barely recognized my own guilt in here. She smiled weakly. We cleaned up. We wanted it to feel like home again. Ah, I said. So that's what remorse smells like, lemon polish and panic. She stepped closer. I'm sorry. It wasn't rehearsed this time. It came out small, raw, and human. I sighed, sinking into my old armchair. Thank God they hadn't replaced it with another fern. You know, I said softly, when you were little, you used to follow me around with a toy hammer, pretending to fix things I hadn't even built yet. You'd say, Don't worry, Daddy, I'll help. Her eyes filled. I spent 30 years believing that was still true, I said. Turns out, I was wrong, but that's all right. Parents are supposed to be wrong sometimes. Gives kids the illusion of wisdom. She let out a wet laugh. You're impossible. Genetic gift, I said. Blame your mother's side. We sat quietly for a moment, no arguments, no defenses, just the sound of two stubborn hearts finally lowering their guard. Then I looked toward the window. The fern was still there, but smaller now, wilted almost. I grinned. You know what? Leave it. It's a reminder. Of what? She asked. That even when people try to replace you, I said. The damn plant never looks as good. She smiled. The drive back home felt longer than it used to. Maybe because the air was finally light, or maybe because I was savoring the silence. Thaddeus didn't speak a word. Marjorie sat in the passenger seat, fiddling with her bracelet like it might give her courage. I sat in the back, humming an old Sinatra tune just loud enough to make them both uncomfortable. When we reached my house, I stepped out slowly, stretching my back like I was reclaiming territory. The lawn needed trimming. The porch light still flickered, but it smelled like me, oil, dust, and stubbornness. Thaddeus opened the trunk. We brought your things. Keep them, I said. Half of it sweaters that make me look like oatmeal. I'll start fresh. He blinked. So you're staying here? I paid for the walls, didn't I said. Seems rude to let them miss me. Marjorie followed me up the steps. Her voice was small. Dad, we thought we were doing the right thing. I unlocked the door. Sweetheart, people always do until the right thing turns out to have my name on the deed. She smiled weakly, eyes glassy. You've always had a way of making everything sound like a lesson. That's called parenting, I said. Some of us don't retire from it. Inside, I flicked on the light. My old recliner sat waiting, loyal as ever. Ah, I said, patting it. The only relationship that never betrayed me. Marjorie laughed softly. You're impossible. Not impossible, I said, settling in. Just hard to evict. She hesitated at the doorway. Do you still want us to visit? I looked at her for a long moment. The kind that made the years between us visible. Only if you come as my daughter, I said quietly. Not my warden. Something broke in her face, the kind of break that lets light in. I'll do better, she whispered. Good, I said. And tell Thaddeus if he wants to earn points, he can mow the lawn. I'll supervise from a safe distance with lemonade. They both laughed. Awkward, but real. And as they drove off, I sat back, feeling the house breathe again. It wasn't revenge that filled me. It was peace laced with just enough sarcasm to keep it human. Because sometimes, the sweetest victory isn't destroying what hurt you. It's outliving it with style. Weeks passed, and my house started sounding like itself again. The pipes groaned, the kettle whistled off key, and I swear the floorboards sighed every time I walked by as if to say, Welcome back, old man. My mornings became sacred. I'd wake before sunrise, pour a scandalously strong cup of coffee, and sit on the porch in my flannel robe like a retired philosopher. The neighbor's dog barked every morning at precisely 6-7, and every morning I barked back. A fair exchange of respect between two creatures protecting their territory. One afternoon, my neighbor Helen from across the street came over with her famous lemon pie. Heard you were sent to Silver Pines, she said, squinting. They didn't keep you long, huh? I grinned. Nah, they couldn't handle my charm, or my cholesterol. She laughed so hard, she nearly dropped the pie. I started helping around the neighborhood again, fixing mailboxes, sharpening lawnmower blades, showing kids how to patch a tire. Nothing heroic. Just small proof that I wasn't a ghost yet. Sometimes Marjorie called. She'd ask how I was, and I'd tease her about finally learning to call before making life decisions for me. And to my surprise, she'd laugh, an honest, unguarded laugh that reminded me of the little girl who used to steal my pancakes. Thaddeus even stopped by once. Stood on the porch like he was visiting a judge. Arthur, he said awkwardly, I misjudged things. Good, I said. You're getting better at math. He cracked a smile. Need anything? Yeah, I said. A new fern. The last one died of guilt. He laughed a real one this time and left with less arrogance than he came. Progress. In the evenings, I'd sit outside watching the sunset leak through the trees. Sometimes I'd think about Silver Pines, the silent halls, the plastic smiles, and I'd toast them with my glass of lemonade. Cheers, I'd whisper. Hope your bingo's as exciting as freedom. Peace had come, not as fireworks, but as a quiet grin that never quite left my face. Because nothing feels younger than outsmarting everyone who thought you were too old to try. The first snow came early that year. I watched it from my porch, wrapped in the same wool blanket Marjorie once called the world's ugliest. She wasn't wrong. It looked like a picnic rug that lost a fight, but it was warm, and it was mine. The yard was quiet. No arguments, no papers on the counter waiting for my signature, no one deciding what was best for me. Just peace and the kettle inside, whistling like it remembered my schedule better than I did. Marjorie visited that afternoon with 2 steaming mugs of cocoa. No Thaddeus this time. She looked around the house and said softly, "It feels different here now." "Yeah," I said. "It remembers who owns it." She smiled, tired but honest. "You know, Dad, I didn't realize how much I missed your noise." "Noise?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "That's wisdom escaping my lungs." She laughed, and that sound, that same old laugh, from when she was a kid, filled the house better than heat ever could. We sat there in silence for a while, watching snow cover everything ugly. She squeezed my hand. "Thank you for forgiving me," she whispered. I looked at her. "Sweetheart, forgiveness is cheap. Understanding, that's the luxury." The sun dipped behind the pines, turning the snow gold. And for the first time, in a long time, I didn't feel like I was disappearing. I felt present, rooted, unapologetically alive. You know, people think getting old means running out of time. But sometimes, it just means everyone else finally slows down enough to notice you were right all along. I took a sip of cocoa and smiled. "They wanted to put me away," I murmured. "Instead, they reminded me how good freedom tastes, especially with marshmallows." And if that was my last winter, I thought, it was a damn fine one. Because dignity, when it's reclaimed, doesn't whisper. It hums quietly, like a man warming his hands over the fire of his own comeback. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here, we tell real stories about family, dignity, and the quiet kind of strength that never fades. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and how old are you? I love seeing how many of us still believe that respect has no age. Thank you for being here. See you tomorrow in another story that cuts a little deeper.